All right, lots to talk about this morning, so I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. Now, 70,000 Kiwis left New Zealand permanently. That's the size of Napier. This was in the last year, a record, 2/3 going we know where, Australia. Wage gap is 33%, and these are skilled workers. These are skilled Kiwi workers. We want them here. When is this country going to be good enough for them to return?
When paradise isn't enough. New Zealand is the kind of place that makes other countries look like rough drafts, mountains that would make Switzerland jealous, coastlines so pristine they're routinely left off world maps because cartographers assume something that perfect must be a mistake. A population of just 5.3 million enjoying universal healthcare, excellent education, rock-solid political stability, and an egalitarian culture most nations spend centuries trying to build. And those same people, they're leaving, not fleeing war, not escaping persecution, not running from economic collapse, simply leaving. And they're doing it at rates that rival exodus patterns from actual conflict zones in the developing world. This is the paradox eating away at New Zealand's core, and it's writing a preview of what happens when being a great place to live stops being enough. The number, 600,000 New Zealand-born citizens currently living in Australia. That's like the entire city of Boston just gone, vanished across the Tasman Sea. More than 10% of New Zealand's entire population. 1 in 10. Imagine losing 1 out of every 10 people you know. That's not a brain drain. That's a hemorrhage, and it's surgical in its precision, targeting young, educated professionals at the start of their careers. Doctors, engineers, teachers, researchers, entrepreneurs who've absorbed the cost of their education in New Zealand and are delivering the dividends elsewhere. Meanwhile, traffic flows the other direction too. About 90,000 Australians have made the reverse journey. But here's where it gets brutal. These aren't young workers. They're wealthy retirees, buying up lakefront properties and converting New Zealand's most desirable real estate into their personal retirement villages. The country is trading its economic future for someone else's golden years. So why are people actually leaving? You need to understand what they're leaving behind. New Zealand's economy operates under crushing constraints. It's absurdly remote. Reaching any major market means crossing thousands of miles of ocean. It's small. The total population equals metropolitan Sydney. And almost anything you can do there, you can do cheaper, faster, and at massive scale in Asia. Traditional heavy industries, forget it. Financial services, Singapore, and Sydney are right there with bigger markets and better infrastructure. The political and economic ties between Australia and New Zealand run so deep that most international operations can serve both markets from Australian soil. New Zealand doesn't just face competition, it faces redundancy. What's left? Agriculture is one bright spot. New Zealand has turned farming into a high-tech export machine, using its fertile land, abundant water, and southern hemisphere location to produce off-season goods for hungry northern markets. New Zealand farmland ranks among the most valuable per hectare on Earth. But there's a catch. When land costs that much, farmers invest in top-tier equipment. Modern New Zealand agriculture is capital-intensive and highly mechanized. A university-educated city dweller isn't finding their calling on an automated dairy farm, no matter how profitable.
We're talking to people about the cost of living crisis around here. You want to talk about it, or?
Mate, I'm eating tuna out of a can.
Oh, no
It's pretty
Statistics New Zealand data reveals 127,800 people left in the year to November. Those figures are up by 28% on the previous 12 months, and more than half the numbers were made up of Kiwi citizens.
More people are leaving New Zealand than ever before. In the year to August, 134,000 people departed Aotearoa. That's the highest ever recorded for an annual period, and a 37% increase on the year before. At the same time, migrant arrivals fell 17%. Let's take a look at what that means for net migration.
This sparsely populated country on the edge of the world has some of the most unaffordable real estate on the planet. It's economic Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. Young professionals can't afford homes because the housing market dominates the economy, and the housing market dominates the economy because that's where all the money flows. And here's what makes this truly bizarre. If unaffordable housing were the problem, the solution would be obvious: move somewhere cheaper. But that's not what's happening. Over half of departing New Zealanders jump from the frying pan straight into the fire, relocating to Australian cities where housing costs are equally brutal, if not worse. They're not fleeing prices, they're chasing opportunity. And before the Australians in the comments start celebrating, you're not winning this because you're better. You're winning because you're bigger. New Zealand's economy has become dangerously narrow. Unless you want to work in agriculture or orbit the housing market, your options crater fast. Specialized research, senior management at a multinational, high-end financial analysis, advanced medical specialties, those jobs need scale. Scale needs big cities. In New Zealand's case, those big cities are in another country. Brain drain happens everywhere. Rural areas lose talent to cities constantly. What makes New Zealand exceptional is that the entire country functions as the rural area in this equation. The big cities aren't Auckland and Wellington. They're Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. And then there's the path between them. Think about it. Australia gets educated workers without paying a cent for their education. New Zealand taxpayers fund the schools, universities, and healthcare that create these skilled professionals, and Australia reaps the benefits. It's brain drain with a smile. The perfect scheme. The legal setup is simple. Citizens can live, work, and buy property in either country with virtually no restrictions. Australian opportunities are just a plane ticket away. No visas, no permits. Just go. Both populations speak English. Cultures nearly identical. A New Zealander in Sydney faces none of the usual migrant challenges. They fit immediately. Australian universities treat New Zealand students as locals. Same tuition, same loans. Half the medical school class is from New Zealand because Australian universities have more seats. Students train there, network there, stay there. Migration is brutal, except FO, a different state. One with more jobs, bigger companies, actual career paths. New Zealand's response to losing 600,000 citizens: import replacement workers, open doors to skilled migrants, primarily from Asian population centers. Plot twist, those immigrants leave too. Destination? Australia. This created the New Zealand backdoor. New Zealand makes immigration easier than Australia. Workers arrive, grind through a few years, get citizenship, then relocate to bigger Australian cities. First-generation immigrants lack the deep roots that anchor multi-generational Kiwis. They've secured documentation, made the rational choice. New Zealand became a processing centre for Australia's workforce, bearing costs while Australia collects dividends. The country now finds itself in a bizarre loop. Wealthy Australian retirees buying up premium real estate, young New Zealand professionals departing for opportunity, immigrants arriving to fill gaps, then leaving for those same opportunities, and the entire system propped up by an economy obsessed with housing. So why doesn't New Zealand close the border with Australia? Because that's politically impossible, strategically unwise, and economically questionable. 10% of New Zealand's population lives in Australia, a massive voting bloc opposed to border restrictions. Add Kiwis, who haven't left but like having the option, and closing borders becomes political suicide. Strategically, Australia and New Zealand are defence partners, trade partners, cultural siblings. Disrupting freedom of movement would strain ties both nations depend on for Pacific security. And economically, many who leave return later with Australian skills and cash, becoming successful entrepreneurs, pumping overseas earnings back home. The brain drain is also brain circulation. The real solutions won't come from closing borders. They'll come from making New Zealand rewarding enough that young professionals choose to stay or return. That means diversifying an economy too dependent on housing and agriculture, creating industries that can thrive despite remoteness and small scale, making home ownership achievable for the people building the country's future. And let's talk about what's actually being lost here. New Zealand isn't just hemorrhaging workers, it's losing its stories, its artists, its future leaders, its cultural engine. The country risks becoming a museum of what it used to be, maintained by imported labor and enjoyed by wealthy retirees. New Zealand has advantages. A low debt-to-GDP ratio gives the government room to act boldly. The country's reputation for stability, safety, and natural beauty continues attracting immigrants and investors. These intangible assets matter. You can't build a tech hub without talent, but you also can't build one without quality of life that makes people want to stay. The challenge? Converting those advantages into opportunities before another generation decides paradise is something you visit on vacation, not build a career around. Because right now, New Zealand has discovered something terrifying. Being a wonderful place to live isn't the same as being a wonderful place to work. Think about the stakes. If New Zealand, with its stability, education, healthcare, natural beauty, and cultural cohesion, can't keep its young people home, what does that mean for small nations in a globalized economy? This isn't just New Zealand's problem. It's a preview. Your country could be next. Because this isn't about paradise failing. It's about discovering that in the 21st century, being great might not be enough anymore. Geographic size matters. Economic diversity matters. Sometimes more than quality of life. Or maybe New Zealand becomes the model for how small nations thrive by embracing constraints rather than fighting them. Building an economy valuing sustainability over scale, quality over quantity. Proving 5 million people can compete not by matching Sydney's size, but by offering something Sydney fundamentally can't. But that clock is ticking. Every day, roughly 80 more New Zealanders make the choice. Every doctor who moves to Melbourne, every engineer relocating to Brisbane, every researcher choosing Sydney represents not just a lost worker, but a lost chance to answer these questions. Remember that paradise I mentioned at the start? It's for sale, and everyone's cashing out. The question isn't whether New Zealand can afford to lose its people. The question is whether it can figure out how to make them want to stay before there's no one left to turn off the lights. If you're from New Zealand or Australia, drop your experience in the comments. Are you staying, leaving, or have you already made the jump? And if you're from another small country watching this same pattern emerge, let me know, because this story is just getting started.